Welcome all to another episode of The Scoop, your go to resource to cut through all the noise surrounding Juventus's Mercado and get a little dose of truth to what's really happening behind the scenes. My name is Zach, and of course, I'm joined by Frederic, from whom we get our inside information. Frederic, I am back from my long holiday.
You are.
It is good to see you. How are you doing?
Same, very well. It's just a shame that we can't do this like we did the last one in real life next to each other, but distance makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah, a lot has happened. I don't have a voice for some reason. I've got this little gravelly thing going on, but I just wanted to take a second and first off, sort of kind of run through what I did because it was just an overwhelmingly positive experience, and I want to shout out the countries, some of which I'm sure our listeners live in. But first, I need to explain why I am wearing this non-Juventus jersey on a Scoop program. That is for those only listening. This is a live show, but those only listening either on YouTube or after the fact on, say, Spotify or Apple, I am wearing a Belgian national jersey. And that is because, ladies and gentlemen, I am dumb. Um, rewind, rewind back to the World Cup. Frederic and I did a special episode because our home countries played each other in the elimination rounds, and I said, well, if Belgium manages to beat United States, I will wear a Belgian jersey on an episode. And well, for those who do remember, the United States got absolutely shellacked. So I stay true to my word, and I am wearing a Belgian jersey on today's
Respect.
episode.
We went
Now,
we went above and beyond to gather said jersey
yes, we were.
because we couldn't find any proper sporting shops, so we were stuck with these tourist trap kind of
It really
shops.
was. Yeah. So
Yeah, but
yeah, it was absolutely one of those souvenir shops. But whatever, I stay true to my word, and that's why I'm wearing that today. On my
respect.
travels, I had an absolute pleasure to go spend time with Beppe and Frederic's lovely wife in Belgium. I spent a real good few days in Amsterdam. I spent a long time in Denmark, sort of scouring the islands of Zealand and Funen, and it was an absolutely wonderful trip. I know some of our listeners are from these places. And it was really cool for me to travel so far and just sort of step into y'all's world. And everyone was super nice. I actually met a couple Juventini along the way, just randomly at cafes and whatnot. And it was just a cool trip. And it was really nice for me to kind of, again, step into the world of many of y'all and experience and enjoy all of that. But now I'm back. In fact, I literally got home from my 11-hour flight about 75 minutes ago. So I'm running on fumes and just a pure desire to bring you guys some inside information. So for those new to the scoop, this is the Turin Giants transfer program. We will be going through potential rivals, potential departures today, as the sort of the market is in full swing. Obviously, in our last episode, we brought you a day or two before the formal announcements, the Ali Begovic and the Kolomani news. Previously, we've brought in Chelik and Jeff, unfortunately, who got injured, but which means we got a lot of players in, but there's still more work to be done to complete this team. That's what we're going to cover today. And how we do it, again, for those new to the program, is via temperatures to indicate the likelihood that those players move. So with that, Frederic, correct me. Have I missed anything?
You were very, very thorough, and I want to take the chance also to thank you and your lovely wife for getting glimpse of Belgium while you were at it because it wasn't planned per se in your trip, but you just took a kind of a detour to get to see Beppe and I and my wife for the bonus. So we were delighted to spend that time with you, and I'm forever grateful. And we made a lot of nice memories apart from all the Juve stuff that we have. So I was very, very, very happy.
Well, there's one thing I forgot, and I'm glad you're happy. But there's one thing we forgot, and that's to say hi to all of the live
Yeah.
participants who are already chatting to us. Obviously, the names that many of y'all have heard and seen before. Brian, who's working out at the gym, Takeshi Juve since '94. Dan Colosimo, who had a lovely post on Reddit showing all of the videos he's prepped for the Mercado, many of which he cannot use. We got Vesterman, we got Osama, we got Muhammad. Alex Boston, Masood, User, Stavros. Wow, a lot of people coming in. Calcio, and other folks as well. People are really excited to hear what you got. So let's stop with all of the intro stuff and get into it. For those, and this will be my last for those new to the program. If you have a questions on a player, we don't cover everything. If you have questions on a player, put it in the chat after the sort of core program. We go back and we ask Frederic if he's heard anything on those. Like for instance, Artur Vesterman has called out. We do not have him as part of our program. We will ask Frederic after the core thing if he's heard anything about what Artur's future looks like. And with that, let's get into our potential additions. Now, normally we have a full slot of 7 or 8 potential additions that we're looking at, but with the arrivals that have already come in, the window naturally narrows in terms of what we're looking for, right, Frederic? I think goalkeeper's obvious. Another
Yeah.
striker's been in the discussion, as well as a potential center back, and if we can offload any, another midfielder, right?
Yeah, and in all honesty, I think this list will probably be a bit diverse within the coming weeks. I wouldn't rule out the Kansas City shuffle by Carnevali. And maybe, if we get some, how shall I put this, opportunities, then I wouldn't put it past our board to make haste and get some of those in. But these are the names that we're focusing on right now. No surprises really. And I'll start with our Dutch striker, Zirkzee. Why Zirkzee? Well, Juve and Zirkzee have been going at it for some time now. You could say almost parallel to Colomwani, because the sense is within Juventus that Zirkzee would be not only an alternative to Colomwani, but could also link up with Colomwani in a
Hmm.
certain fashion. And it was a bit difficult at times, but Zirkzee is now standing in hot water, so to speak, temperature wise. Why is that? Because Manchester United have opened up to the possibility of getting him on a loan with not the obligation to buy, but the option to buy, which is something that, giving our economical situation at this point and not knowing who to get rid of or how to get rid of some people, this looks like a good opportunity. And yeah, I think Zirkzee is a solid candidate, and should we choose to progress, it will not drag on for the end of August, in my opinion. This is something or a player where we can, come to terms with everything we need to do in terms of bureaucratic things fairly easily.
Yeah, I mean, he has a very similar profile to Jonathan David. He's bigger, he's stronger, and therefore I think it helps him be a better player in the hold up play, whether that be as a sort of a deep lying target man forward or as a number 10, where we've also seen Jonathan David play. Is it simply that if Jonathan David goes and because we got him on a free, that means that anything we get him for is pure profit? Or is it that we could bring in Xerxes regardless of what happened with David?
We'll talk about David in a sec, but I think what Juventus wants to do now is you know, grab the opportunities, and by all definitions, Zirkzee is an opportunity,
Hmm.
and so I'm thinking that they'll try to work simultaneously on getting the David exit out as well as the Zirkzee in the same time frame, give or take a couple of days. But should David decide to stay, I'm not so sure it would mean that Zirkzee wouldn't happen. I think Zirkzee is more of a push towards David and his management to tell him, look, your time here is done. You can still get your salary, like the contract demands. demands of us, but playing time is not going to happen.
Gotcha.
So I think it's more that kind of situation.
Well, let's move down the list. We've been hearing for quite some time that another center back has been desired from management and Spalletti. We haven't seen any leave yet, which is probably why we haven't seen any arrive. But one of the ones that we've had consistently linked with us to arrive is Lukumi, who is on our list today. Where do we stand with his arrival?
We're constantly in talks with Bologna. We have a good relationship with Bologna. Lukumi is a name that Spalletti mentioned even more after the World Cup because he observed him closely in those games that he played. And Spalletti's convinced that he could be an alternative for a lot of people in our back line, or maybe even could become a starter. But as you already said, it's difficult in the sense that Bologna demand a hefty sum. We tried to dilute that with bringing in the likes of Caballo Miretti, which Bologna is not all too excited over. But if for some reason we move forward on Lukumi, it's going to be because we know that somebody in our back line is going to move. And then the most likely, or the person I think is most likely indicated to leave at this point is Gatti. Um, from what I could tell, we've narrowed it down to 19 million for Lukumi. The thing we have in our favor now is that Lukumi is refusing every other transfer. He really wants Juventus. So we kind of has Bologna by the balls in that sense because he'll be transfer free next season as well. And I think the next step for Lukumi and his management is to make clear to Bologna, either you let me go now on a reasonable fee
Hmm.
and you come to terms with what Juventus has to offer, or I'll just wait it out and move next season. Should that be the case, then of course we're going to look for an alternative, especially if somebody moves from our back line. But make no mistake, Zirkzee, Lukumi are top priorities for the coming days, and I expect something to shift along quickly.
Hmm. And that's why we have them both as hot. Alex points
Hmm.
out that Lukumi smoked Dushan every time, and I think unfortunately, that's not really a vote of confidence because every center back in Serie A, as far as I can remember, smoked Dushan every time. So, um, but it is good to note. While I'm looking at the chat, yeah, I see Skippy joined. Skippy, if I'm not mistaken, you're down there in Australia. Are you going to, or have you met any of the folks down there or gone to any events? I see Sasha joined as well, asking if I'm ill. No, I'm just sort of rocking this grovelly voice thing. Not sure why, but good to have y'all. Juventus Turin as well. Thanks for joining. Um, while I wait to see what Skippy responds, because I'm curious if he has gone to any of the events down there. Let's go to Kessier. Frank's been on our list a lot here, and we've sort of heard and said, if I'm not mistaken, that really he's ready to go. We just need to get rid of
Yeah,
somebody first, right? Is there
yeah.
anything new on that front, or is that really just the same situation?
It's the same, but a small difference in the fact that Kessie made it very clear that he'll lower his wage demands because, and I've seen this a lot, and I want to give my piece about something about the UEFA financial fair play because everybody thought after Kerim and Moani that we're done because we don't have any money left. Well, that's not true because we need to look at the balance sheet. And the UEFA said the balance sheet now at the end of August needs to be lower than the balance sheet at the end of August of last year. And that entails not only the transfer sums, but also the amortization and the salary. And we gained a lot by letting a number of players go on a free so we can balance that out. So there's enough firepower financially. We just have to make sure that it stays within those parameters, especially salary wise. So it has nothing to do with you can't afford player X or Y. No, it has to do with balancing the books and making sure that we have a lower balance sheet than we had last year. And that's pretty much it. So he made it clear that he was willing to lower his wage demands. but I have the feeling, and I had that feeling for a time now, and I told you already. I have the feeling that Cassier is a plan B in a sense that we might try to get a better name in, or a name that Spalletti sees more fit, because Cassier is clearly a Massara name. He's on very good terms with Massara,
Mhm.
and I think Cassier could be useful to this Juventus, especially given the Cassier we saw in the World Cup. That's why I put him at warm and not hot, because uh, it's clear to me that Circe Lukumi are solidified objectives, and everybody in board and staff agrees on those names. Cassier's, put a bit on the back burner due to the reasons I just told. So
Yeah,
we'll see
it,
how that unfolds.
and it sounds like, in other words, if Kessié was a priority name, he would already be in our
Yeah,
kit, right? I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean that
It'd
would have
be
been done.
on.
Done. It would
Yeah,
he'd be in Perth right now.
yeah.
Um, um, yeah, and I think but I do agree that like he's definitely shown the quality over the World Cup, and of course we've seen him in his club career to improve a midfield that's really struggled. Now, the next name is the last name on a potential addition, Anatoly Trubin, is a name that I haven't heard linked to Juve from a goalkeeper standpoint. We see Dan Colosimo's funny comment saying, just tell me that it's Xerxes, Kessié, Lukumi, and Suzuki. Obviously, Suzuki has been heavily linked to Juventus, why there either be a direct transfer or like this weird loan situation with PSG. Um, where did Trubin come from? Where did we stand with him? And if you have any intel, what's the situation with Suzuki and why is he not on our list?
Well, Trubin, we've been wondering for some time now. And I think as to why Trubin is on the list and not Suzuki's, because Spalletti himself is not very positive about the fact about getting Suzuki in as a loanee, because you have to start afresh next season again. And
Hmm.
he wants to mold the team. And if I'm not mistaken, and I have to check my messages, but it was something along the lines of, I want to create the basis this year so that I can fill in the little blanks next season or maybe in January. And it doesn't make sense to get a goalkeeper in, reevaluate him for another team, and send him on his way next season. That's not in Spalletti's mind. Vicario doesn't convince him technically. Um, Dibu is that deal since weeks now. I told you. Um, so Trubin is a name that's we've intensified some contacts with them, but the keeper situation is a very strange one in the sense that Juventus is taking their time to make the right decision. And I'll paraphrase that in a sec, because if you buy a midfielder is a midfielder, no matter how deep or low the midfielder plays, he needs to have certain characteristics. A Cassier, for example, you could put next to Locatelli. You could even put Douglas Luiz, Locatelli, Cassier as a midfield that would work out. You have different options. With the goalkeeper, you just have this one goalkeeper. You have no other options except your number two, but they want to make sure that they pick the right one, because the Di Gregorio case, um, as we all know, is not one of a lot of happy tales, and that's something that Massara and especially Carnevali wants to avoid in the future. So even though the goalkeeper is a big priority, I still feel that Juventus will take their time to make reasonable assessments, and then it could go really quick. But Trubin, for me, and this is my personal opinion, out of all the names we listed, we saw about potential goalkeepers, for me is the one with the, let's say, the highest potential. Yeah, I rate him as a goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think Sasha responds to something you said, by saying, "Will Spalletti still be here next season to sort of mold this team?" I mean, we've talked about it where the likelihood to see out his full contract is relatively low. I know Beppe has said the same thing. I think the answer, and correct me if you disagree, Frederic, but I think the answer to Sasha's question is that Spalletti is going to operate as though he will be here next season until he is not here next season. And so I think he's got to take that proper vision when building the squad that he wants, is to assume, because he's the one in the position, that he will see out his contract.
Yeah, and I also think that, whether or not he'll be here will be irrelevant in a sense, because I think that if we were to look for a new coach, whatever the reason may be, I think that Cannavale and Massara are smart enough to look for somebody who can carry on what Spalletti has built, and not just, cut it and
Mhm.
move out half of the team, bring another half in. I think the long-term vision is there finally, because that was missing for years. And like I said, I wouldn't put it past Carnevali nor Massara to pull a Kansas City shuffle. I saw somebody in chat commenting Karnesecki. I don't think the Karnesecki deal is dead. I'm just very sure that Carnavali's playing multiple cards and seeing what the best option at the moment is for every player. And I know for a fact that they're working really hard and really close together. And I have one text here that is a testament to that. Carnavali left Continassa yesterday at around 1 o'clock at night.
Good. He's working hard.
Yes, he
Yep.
is.
Um, and Masood, no, Fred did not recently learn the term Kansas City Shuffle. He's been using it the whole time. So long, and I know you've been around, Masood, but Kansas City Shuffle is one of Frederick's favorite and most used phrases. Um, uh, Go watch Lucky Number 11 if you haven't seen it. It is a fun, if not somewhat dated flick. And I agree with the Creppy that I don't think we can afford Karnaseki this year. So you gotta look at alternative options. Let's switch on over to a longer list. Not unsurprisingly, since we've already brought in some players, we have a lot we have to get rid of, and we're going to start with, we just had a keeper discussion. Our two keepers. So why don't you handle them together, Frederic,
Hmm.
between Di Gregorio and Perrin?
Yeah. Well, it's clear one of them has to move, and I just got a text in about one of them, which is
Hey,
nice.
hey.
But I'll get to that in a second. But no, I put Perrin at cold in the sense that I think, um, just looking at the market, I think as it stands, Di Gregorio should get more offers in compared to Perrin. All is it just because of the age difference? And I don't think that Perrin would mind staying the number two in our squad, or the number two goalkeeper in our squad. Whereas with Di Gregorio, I think it's more difficult because of course he wants to play. But the text I just got in is that Di Gregorio has been placed on the outbound list of um, to leave. But they're evaluating the situation in the sense that there are no negotiations, no official offers, but word around the campfire is that there are a couple of EPL squads interested in his services. And now that they officially know that he's on the outbound roster, um, it could be that we'll see a shift of momentum very soon. But because there are no current offers in yet, I've put him at room temperature as well. But I do feel that if I had to bet on one of them going out, it'd be Di Gregorio.
I think our chat is okay with that. If I can sort of sense their
I
feelings.
think anybody is okay with that. I hope.
Yeah.
I hope.
Um, Alrighty, so and I'm glad to see we're getting some questions about plays that are on this list. Obviously, or should be obvious, I think, if you're either a watcher of Juventus and or a watcher of this program, that we have a lot of players who could or should leave this team. So we'll handle those additional players in the Q&A after we finish this slide. Let's move on with Gotti. He's a fairly high earner on this team, is certainly when you think of the role he played under Spalletti, which was minimal. Um, where do we stand on him? Because there have been some rumors for quite some time about him leaving, Allegri wanting him, and all this stuff. What's the
Yeah,
news for
well,
you?
it's pretty much the same. Napoli is still interested in him, but the thing is, to deal with Napoli, being Juventus is very difficult in terms of what they offer, what you want, this and that. So, Juventus, if possible, Juventus want to offload him outside of Italy because they know that they can stand to make 20 plus million for
Hmm.
Gatti. Whereas if you shift inland towards Italy for Napoli, you'd be, happy to get 15. Even with how Napoli usually does things, it's probably going to be a loan with an obligation or a masked obligation. But Juventus want to get rid of him and just want fast cash so they can invest in other roles. But I think it's made clear to Gatti as well that if an offer arrives, we're cool with having him leave, and that he won't get a lot of play time. And I expect this to go in a faster pace when we get potentially Lukumi in, because that'll make very clear to Gatti that there's no room for him on the squad list, which will make him look at transfer requests in another manner, I feel.
Hmm.
So I'd put him as warm because I still think that he's one of the top targets to leave this summer. I'm not so sure about the time frame, but like I said, it could go fairly quickly. Contacts with Napoli are still continuous, and there's still, from what I could tell, some teams that are interested, but we haven't really dug into them yet.
Well, let's move from him to everyone's favorite midfielder, including yours, Coop. Is he leaving, much to all of our distress, or is he staying to continue to raise our team to new heights?
From what I could tell, is that Douglas Luiz has leapfrogged Koopmeiners in terms of place on the team, not even as a starter, but just in the general squad list. So I think he'll be forced to leave, but I don't think that we'll get rid of him anytime soon. From what I could tell, and that's why I put him at room temperature. There are not a lot of offers in. I read somewhere yesterday some gossip news that Newcastle were moving for him, but there's nothing concrete about that move whatsoever. So I can rule that one out for now. I feel that he's the kind of player you need to let go in the last week of August on a loan somewhere, and just be glad that you don't have to put up with his wages anymore. There was Everton that was, I think I said this on the scoop as well. Everton was interested in January, and I don't know if we're still holding out for them, but we'll get rid of him, but not in a financial positive outcome, I feel.
Yeah, he's done nothing to earn it.
Well,
So that's what it is. What about Moretti staying in the midfield? Another guy whose departure could free up, Kessier or an alternative's arrival. Uh, um, any news about him? It wasn't too long ago that several Serie A clubs were interested in him. No.
yeah, there are a lot of Serie A clubs interested, but just for a loan. And Juventus or Carnevali said, okay, we either sell him or we keep him and hope that he, breaks through. But we're not going to go and do the middle ground thing because that's not going to work, because we'll find him on our books next year again without him being better. Because let's face it, if you're going to play for Bologna, it doesn't automatically mean that you're ready to play for Juventus after 1 year. So we want to offload him, maybe involve him in a switch player trading somewhere, but it's very difficult. From what I could tell, Bologna is not too keen on getting him in a possible Lukumi deal. Neither for Cabal for that matter. So I think his story aligns with the one of Koopmeiners, and I think he's one that we'll have to get rid of at the end of August or involve him in another trade with a player, but it's going to be difficult. That's why the room
It
temperature.
it's so brutal that we just have all these guys we got to get rid of, and nobody want nobody wants them.
No, and the thing, and To make it clear to a lot of people, these are not, the best of names in terms of how we rate them as players. But if you could see what we have on our roster and how much it costs us, it's mind-boggling. I think
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
about 64 million annually that we spend on salaries of players we don't use, or they just don't make the team or don't perform well
Well,
enough.
well,
So
just look at this list. Gotti, Coop, and David are all, well, two of them are top five earners, no?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
Gotti's in the
yeah,
top 10 as well. Like these are
yeah.
not, these are, and then, that's of course after Dushan, who was just so clearly, and then you have other guys like Chico who underperformed, who's a top earner.
Yeah.
Openda, before we loaned him out, was a top earner. I mean,
And
it's really, 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 really
that
tough.
that's why I wanted to point this out, because we were tough on Komoli, especially in the last couple of months, and rightfully so. We shouldn't be as tough on Carnevale, because what he's doing up until now is nothing short of a miracle. And if he can get like 4 or 5 players out of the list that we have, or maybe others, then he's doing very well.
Well, I think to that point, when if you rewind and listen to our episodes at the beginning of last year, um, Kamoli joins, and there was an episode where I broke down the math. Like, this is the effect on our wage structure. This is the effect on our transfer
Yeah,
balance. And the way he had set it up was, and he was trying really hard to sell Dushan. So if he had sold Dushan, and we had the Douglas Luiz, Nico Gonzalez, and Timothy Weah obligations all triggered, the financial impact would have been staggeringly positive. And so you look at his movements with with that idea of optimism, simply because he hasn't been in the job long, and you see the promise there. But then you fast forward to the end of the season, he doesn't sell Dushan. Two of the three clauses aren't triggered, and you have to look at it and say that's absolute bust on top of the Openda deal and stuff like that. So I
yeah,
think Carnevale is the same in the sense that we're going to look at his deals and say, look, we like the players he's bringing in so far. He's got to get rid of some dead weight. But if he at the end of the window, we still have all this dead weight, still have a bloated wage structure because we can't get rid of people, and the results don't translate on the pitch, we might very well be having the same conversation about him as we did with Kamoli and Juntili at the end of the season, right?
yeah. But the feeling's different. You kind of have the feeling that Cannavale is more also a sporting man, in the sense that he knows football, and he's juggling the financial aspect and the quality aspect, and he really is trying to make this team better. Whereas with Kamoli, you often had the feeling that he'll just go for whoever his algorithm says him to, which doesn't mean anything in modern day football. Whereas Carnevale, and especially Masaya, they have such great knowledge about football in general, that you do have the feeling that if they move for a player, they do it well, and it's very thought out of. And also they tend to, not show their cards or everything they hold in their hand at the first glance, whereas Komoli was fairly open about that. Hey, Openda, 45 million, yeah, sure, let's go. So, it's different, and it's very difficult for me to put this into a podcast, but also my source confirms it and says, well, the feeling, the surrounding, the ambiance, the vibe is different. You get a sense of professionalism now. You get a sense of people understanding what Juventus is and how they need to carry that on with, accordance with other teams, managers, intermediaries, whatever. It feels more smooth, more oiled, more like a machine, more professional. And Cannavale is also known for not, speaking his mind, which is what we like. He was very harsh on the FIGC thing. Took a stab at Komoli as well in a certain interview. So he knows what he's doing, and he listens a lot. If somebody talks to Cannavale, he doesn't, open his mouth and start talking. He starts, processing what people say, and how we can work with that. It's a different vibe. It's a different vibe. They're not rushing. They're very calm. They're very confident. They keep exploring. They keep working hard. And it's not like Comoli where he rushed into speed like the last week of Mercato because everything fell through.
Yeah.
No, these gentlemen are actually planning their steps and moves and with a vision behind it and with in accordance with Spalletti,
Yeah,
which is nice.
and let's rewind. If I and I don't remember the exact dates, but if my memory serves me correct, at this time last year, we only had João Mario and Jonathan David in. We
Yeah.
had to wait to the end of the Mercado to get Jagrova and Openda and stuff. This so far this year we have Ale Begovic and Kolomwani, two very exciting players in terms of making us better. Um, we have Chelik, who is a very good, and when we get into the scoop reviews of these players, I'll give a more formal review of it. But he's what I would describe as a control fullback, not really dynamite going forward, but he does a good job, solid job to control that position and anybody who he's playing against. And then you got a young Italian striker in Jeff Ekator. Like that already in a year we do not have Champions League money is a very active and I think relatively promising Mercado, certainly when compared to this time last year, right?
Yeah, and I'll even go further. I think it's safe to say, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I think we'll get rid of, let's say, 5 to 7 players in total before the Mercato ends. And I think we'll bring in 3 to 5 new ones, and not
That's
just
exciting. That's exciting. I think
fillers,
people
but
are excited about
honestly,
the levers.
yeah. Well,
Let's finish.
the
Let's finish.
excitement is well deserved for now.
Yeah, let's finish this list because after we finish Jagrova and David, the last two names that are potential departures, there was two names that we really wanted to put on this episode, but we didn't have necessarily the intel to give them temperatures. And so we want to discuss them with you before we go back down through the questions in the chat so that all of your players and questions are answered. So let's move on to Mr. Galazzo himself. Finally puts the ball in net, Eden Jagrova. Does that mean we can now get rid of him? Why is he on the list?
He's on the list because we don't have much room up front now. And Zigrova clearly is a bit of a stand-in for Conceição at this point because we don't know how the Conceição situation will evolve in terms of, him. I think he'll stay, but with Kerim coming in and Zigrova not being the best performer, we'll have to get rid of somebody. And I think Zigrova alongside David is on that list. And I put them both at warm because the cost for Zigrova is not that big. If we sell him, we don't have to ask for an outrageous amount. And with Jonathan David, it's pretty much the same. And the thing that's different is that Zigrova really wants to fight for a spot and wants to stay at Juventus. He publicly declared it as well. Whereas Jonathan David or his management has made it clear that they understood the message and they're gonna go on the lookout for a new team. So Spalletti made it very clear to David, especially the last game where he played 28 minutes and
We got
he subbed
subbed.
back off again. Yeah, and it's all good and well if you see Spalletti say, "Oh no, we talked beforehand and this was planned." It wasn't planned. He's not injured. It wasn't planned, but his chances or the chances that he got are counted for, and it's over for him at Juventus, especially with Colomani and Kerim coming in because you have so many opportunities now to have a front line that's really menacing. And I just don't think that Jonathan David is that type of player that'll be one of the leading roles in that front line. But he has some mercato, whereas in the past he kind of dismissed everything. Now he knows that he's not in a situation to dismiss anything yet because he won't get any playing time, and he pretty much agrees and thinks it's best to part ways with Juventus. The only thing we need to do now is find a fit that's not only good for Juventus but also for him
Mhm.
because he has high standards salary wise.
I mean, well, we're paying him a lot, so the expectation would be is he doesn't. If I were him, like I don't want to make less, right? So
No,
the team we need to find a team that can handle that. But as
yeah,
Stavros says, any sale would be pure profit. All right, let's run by the last two names. So On potential arrival, we really wanted to put Angelo Stiller, Stuttgart center midfielder, in there. And for potential departures, we wanted to put Andrea Cambiaso in there. I know that's a name that many, many people in chat have brought up. Why don't I see Cambiaso? What's the deal with Cambiaso? Well, we wanted to put him in there, but we just didn't feel for either player that we could properly put a temperature for both Stiller and as a potential arrival, and Cambiaso as a potential departure. Frederic, why don't you explain why we ultimately chose not to include them as a formal name and more discuss them in sort of this type of fashion?
Yeah, well, Stiller is a name that's been on Juve's radar for long, and I don't know why, but every time when I utter that name to my source, he kind of skips past it, not responding, being very vague. So that gives me a hint that there's, could be something in the works. And I think that Stiller is the kind of technical midfielder that Spalletti really wants, because as everybody knows, we're missing that bit of technicality and flair and brilliance in midfield. Of course, we have Douglas Luiz, but that's still a big risk because you don't know if
Hmm.
he'll be able to pull it off for a whole season, let alone one game. So we really need that spark in midfield, and I know that Stiller is much appreciated by the whole board, by the whole management, and Spalletti. And the fact that he hasn't gone anywhere yet, makes me wonder, is there something in the works? Also, the fact that Cassier hasn't been brought on yet, it makes me. But like I said, my sources pretty much skipping me and ghosting me regarding that name, which could be an indication of things to come. So that's why we didn't put him, because I have no official confirmation in that sense. But following my gut feeling, I think something's afoot there.
Now, Cambiaso, though, you said there was way more concrete movement behind the scenes with
Yeah,
regards to him.
yeah.
Bring people up to speed?
There was an offer from a club from outside of Italy. I don't know which club. I'm guessing EPL probably, and one offer from a club within Italy. But Cambiaso responded that he didn't want to leave. I don't think that Cambiaso doesn't want to leave. I think he wants to leave through the main gate with a bigger name team
Hmm.
and a bigger salary, probably. So I think he's holding out for that. Um, and I just got a text in. Don't rule out Real Madrid, not just for Cambiaso. I think in a whole, because they took a hit in their midfield, and Mourinho is known to have, this thing for Italian controlling midfielders. Maybe they'll go haywire and pull up something for Locatelli, who knows?
Well, speaking
But
about Italians, Benedetto asks, "Where are the Italians?" And I think I can answer the departure standpoint. We're trying to get rid of a lot of them because Italians like Gatti and Cambiaso have been more problems than solutions. But from a acquisition standpoint, we only have Ekator, coming in, who's an Italian. So last year, Camoli's strategy seemed decidedly anti-Italian. Frederic. Um, this year, not so much. We were linked with, Pellegrino, and that's a question in chat. What about Pellegrino, who's Italian? Obviously, Ekator came in, who's Italian. What about some other Italian players? Obviously, none were today, if I remember correctly, that we discussed arriving were Italian. Is it sort of a strategy, or is it simply the market?
it's a bit of both. And before I proceed, I want to thank Benedetto for his donation. Thank you so much. We can put.
Yeah, yeah.
Ah,
Actually, not only his donation, our first ever donation,
our
right?
first ever.
So I
This
think
is a moment for the
Benedetto.
book.
Yeah, no, we'll put it on the wall. Benedetto, the first ever donation we have ever received. So sorry.
Benedetto, please post, DM us because we want to make sure that something comes your way. I think we
All
have
right.
to. We have to.
Yeah,
We
okay,
have to make sure that something goes
Frederick,
Benedetto's way.
Frederick will make it happen. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I'll
send him
make it
send
happen.
him a scoop shirt or something. He's in
Yeah,
Canada, so we can make it happen.
we can make it
Um,
happen. No, but I
no,
think
but
it's
yeah,
it's
let's
it's
answer his question. So thank you, Benedict.
it's a combination of both in the sense that we are very active with Italian players, but not for our first team. So I think that Juventus want to, get Italians in and really mold them into what could be the next best thing in Italian football. Because if you look at it from afar, and I know it's frustrating, and I could tell Benedetto from the caps that you were using, but it's very frustrating for Juventus as well because every time that we want to go for an Italian promise or whatever, an Italian player with a lot of potential, we get baited in the sense that they overcharge, they over ask. Whether you go to Parma, you go to Atalanta, you go to Udine, you over ask. Oh, another donation. Juve since '94. Thank you so much. Sorry, got the bleep message in. Thank you so much. Uh, wow, wow. We'll have to make something happen. But so Juventus' strategy is buying them young, molding them, and hoping they can get into the first team, especially within the under 17, the under 21, and then move that along to the next gen, and then get some next gen players in the first team. But I think because Cannavali knows a lot about Italian football, Italian players, I think maybe we'll get to see some Italian movement in Cannavale's second year
Mm-hmm.
when he's put down the basics and yeah.
Yeah, I think there's definitely more there. Benedetto calls out the Cinque Maggio shirt that, of course, you have and have worn on stream. Yeah, we're gonna have to ask Farhad if because he's the source for that. So we got scoop shirts, we got
Yeah.
Cinque. We'll have some conversations behind the scenes. Benedetto, reach out to us, um, and we'll keep
Also,
track of all
Juve
that.
since '94.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We'll make sure to include you in those conversations and see what we can do. But we'll make something happen. You have our word. And we get floating hearts as well. I see. I don't know what a
I
floating
don't know what a
heart is,
floating heart
but
is, but thanks, Ace.
it's I appreciate floating hearts a lot. Not as much as balls, but hearts go a long way as well.
Okay, so you have to explain why you're just randomly talking about balls. Is it had to do with
Yeah,
that thing that we went to see in Belgium?
yeah. We went to a Belgian monument, the Atomium, which is made up of balls. It's pretty much an atom with balls and shafts.
Yeah,
And
it's just
this
yeah,
was something
they're very
the
large.
word the very large balls, shiny ones as well.
Yeah,
And the wordplay that day was exquisite. Dare I say it?
exquisite balls.
Exquisite balls, exquisite wordplay, and yeah. So balls is our thing.
All right, but Juve since '94. Please let us know if Frederic's answer to Benedetto's question answered your sort of he can't be alone on the list inquiry. Ace, I don't know what floating hearts are, but we'll figure it out because we're still new to this and we appreciate you. I
Yeah,
think scrolling back up to the top of the list, we want to make sure we get to folks' questions. Uh, our tour was asked about. I've remarked that he looks pretty bad when he's playing. I mean, he literally looks like me, 10 years older, playing in Sunday League. What have you heard about him?
it's difficult with Arthur in the sense that he's moving into his last year in contract, so you can loan him out, which is an option, but he doesn't weigh as heavily on the books because 80% of what he costs has already been written off. So we're hoping for a last minute offer, maybe even for 10 million euros or maybe less from some Brazilian squad, and we can offload him them. But he's not a priority in the sense that he doesn't complicate our life. And I'm pretty sure we'll get rid of him in what formula and in what shape or form. It's not that important to Juventus at this point.
Yeah.
So he's
I
not
mean,
an outgoing priority.
the fact that he's still on our books is baffling, especially when you see Pjanic, who, of course, that exchange happened for. You see him like almost be an agent for Ali Begovic, and then you see Artur
Yeah.
still on our books and still only 29 years old. But yeah, we've renewed him and extended his contract so much that the amount is fortunately not much. Um, Alex wants to know what the deal is with their drinking episode. I think I'm going to sort of lump this in drinking episode, preseason episode, 1,000 subscriber giveaway episode. We're all looking to do that sort of together as sort of our preseason kickoff with sort of the wider team, Farhad, Kevin, and so forth. So stay tuned for that. Scheduling has been brutal because for the last 2 weeks, Farhad, Kevin, and myself were all out of town, but we're all coming back, and so that we will get that on the books, and we'll do some social media announcements and make sure to let you guys know in episodes such as this of when that's happening because we want maximum participation. We plan to do giveaways. Frederic has some cool things he said he's give away. We got scoop shirts that we want to give away because it's fun. I even wore my scoop shirt when I was out in Europe. It's just fun for us. Ace says some kind of jewels. Here's some Swedish. I think KO was at Krona, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. Thank
Thank
you
you
for
so
the
much.
contribution. Hopefully, you did not hear the huge bang of thunder that just happened randomly at 3:51 Central Time in US. Hopefully, that didn't get picked up on the mic.
I
Ace
did not.
gave us some more jewels. We'll have to figure out what this stuff does because I have no idea what jewels do.
Me
Guys,
neither. Well, I
I'm
know what it does with women, but
oh,
not with.
okay. Here he is with balls again. Um, All right, let's go back on the questions. Somebody asked, and Mo corrected, yeah, that Pellegrino is Argentinian, not Italian. That is true. I looked
Hmm.
it up quickly. He was born in Spain, but yeah, he is Argentinian.
Yeah.
Thank you for correcting me. The Matteo Pellegrino is such an Italian name. I assumed,
Yeah.
and that is not good.
No.
Let's see here. Arthur
But
was
you want
last
me
episode.
to say something about Pellegrino?
Yeah, please, and
Because
then
I
we'll
saw
go to and then we'll
questions.
go to and then we'll go to Rugani.
It's slowed down a bit because Parma are insisting on that obligation to buy, while Juve are want different formulas. And given the fact that they have a more advantageous formula now with Circe, they choose to give priority to that happening and keep Pellegrino on the back burner. But it's not going to take long because I have a feeling that Pellegrino, who's followed by Fiorentina, in the coming weeks, if we don't decide to pull him in, yes or no, I think he'll start considering Fiorentina more and more. But he's waiting on us. But uh, the most advantageous formula for us now is with Xerxes, the one we negotiated with United. So
And it's nice. I mean, not that either of these guys are necessarily world beaters. I think Pellegrino fits a niche role that would be successful on our team, but it's nice to have different options and not get shoehorned into this all your eggs in one basket situation, and then you end up with Openda, right?
yeah,
So it is good to have some
exactly.
options into that. Ace asks about Rugani.
Well, Rugani is not a priority as the same situation as Arthur. He doesn't, have that much of an impact on our books. Knows that he's just a sub. If we can loan him out if he wants more playing time, I'm pretty sure we'll do that. Especially if there's a new defender coming in. But for now, he's a non-issue in that sense, and I think Spalletti feels the same. Is that you'd rather have a bunch of people that you can use maybe 3 or 4 times a season, but they won't get their panties in a twist when you don't put them on the starting team, whether to have divas. I'm looking at you, Dusan and Cambiaso, who will make drama every possible moment they can. So
Yeah.
non-issue for Juventus in the sense that we can loan him out whenever we want, but if we keep him, we'll get him to play some games, and it won't affect our books that heavily.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with Sasha saying, we should keep Rugani. Having somewhat reliable players to come off the bench is something that we haven't had. I think having Chelik as a rotational piece who will start games this year, having Rugani, who has proven a competent backup. Um, and you would expect a guy like Gatti, who's paid like 2 or 3 times the amount Rugani has, to play better when he gets those opportunities. And he was mostly atrocious last year relative to Rugani, who just is this sort of simple, no nonsense, steady Eddie's type defender, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Let's go to Calcio's question. This sort of builds off of a discussion we had earlier today about how the likelihood that Spalletti stays through his contract, we sort of put that on the lower end in terms of not as likely. Calcio wants to know, do you think Juventus has a plan for who the next coach might be? We know, like, we were part of the episode where Beppe said, nail it to the wall. Pep is coming, to be our next coach. To what, whenever he said, are you so certain about him leaving? Are you so certain about a new coach coming in? Are you so certain about a name?
It depends on the results because if you'd asked me this question 2 weeks ago, I'd be way more pessimistic in the sense that Mercato was blocked. You didn't have this good vibe or this enthusiasm surrounding the team. And the last couple of weeks, it went upwards. But it all depends on the results. And what I see now is a team of managers that is working very hard to not only please the coach in terms of what he wants, but also give their reflection on what they feel could be of added value to the team. So there's basically this symbiosis happening between them, which I like a lot because you need to start from the basics. And the basics is your management and your staff that are, aligned and move forward. But I also know that Carnevali isn't um the new kid on the block. So he knows what he's doing. And I'm pretty sure they'll have an emergency contingency plan set up. And I also believe that, maybe not now, but let's say around January, he'll start thinking about a post Spalletti successor, which is bound to happen because even if Spalletti, does the next season, then automatically you'd assume that his job here is finished because Spalletti can
Yeah.
only team to a certain level. He's getting older. You have to bring in somebody new, and I don't think it'll be a decision like we had in the past. From one day to the other. I think this is something that will be on the to-do list of Carnevali, and he'll spend a lot of time in accordance with the rest of the management to make sure that we get somebody in who fit the bill perfectly. So I'm pretty confident there, to be honest. I didn't have this level of confidence with Giuntoli or Comoli. I have to say I have it now with Carnevali, especially in that tandem with Massara.
I want to talk about Mohammed's question or comment next. He said that we want United's Openda Xerxes, and we bought Paris's Openda Colo. I think it's time for us to go for young potential players tested in Serie A. And I think our market this year is sort of trying to balance in a way. You got Colomwani in, who might be PSG's Openda, but he was proven in the few months he played for us. But then you say, you need to go for young players. So we brought in Ali Begovic, who's what, 18, 19,
18.
Proven in both his club as well as the national team. We brought in Ekator, who is a young, much rougher player, but still a young, high potential Serie A player. So I think Carnevale is trying to balance bringing in more proven players with guys established in Serie A. Xerxes was very successful at Bologna. Colo very successful with us, Colomwani. And then you have bringing these young guys as well. So I really like the balanced approach to that personally. As much as these players, you don't think of them as world-class additions. Juventus, this version of Juventus has so many spots to replace, that we need to bring in more solid players to then build the foundation on which we can get more money to then bring higher class players in. At least is my take. Frederic, what's yours?
Yeah, we're not the same club that we were 8, 9, 10 years ago. We kind of had our downfall. We kind of had, and we had to be very realistic
Well, we're
about
still
that.
falling. We're still falling until we stop
Yeah,
falling.
I mean it's not like we have the potential to grab the best players, not even within Serie A, but apart from Serie A as well. We don't have that momentum going for us. So what we need to do now, and I think that is something that Cannavale understood from day one, is build a basis that we can build upon and make sure that the points that we lost last year with those ridiculous games we played, and do it be it due to mentality issues, quality issues, coaching issues, whatever, not to have that happen. Because for me it's simple. You replace Di Gregorio, you automatically gain 8 points. It's simple on paper.
At least.
But you also want that keeper that makes that last minute save when you're potentially winning, and you could stand to draw, but he makes that once in a lifetime save and has that qualities. The same with Zirkzee, the same with Moani. They're players that you can put in a squad, you can make the squad rotate, but you stand to gain a lot in terms of points. So you're edging closer, especially to that qualification for Champions League, which we've seen is vital for us. And then afterwards, you can fill in the blanks. And if they're done, at least you've played 3 to 4 seasons high quality football in sense of competing Champions League, Serie A, whatever. And then you can be able and say, okay, we're playing Champions League. We may have won the Scudetto. We're a force to be reckoned with. Here's the next Erling Haaland. Would you like to join Juventus? We'll give you 10 million a year, because then
Mhm.
we, and now we just can't. And it'd be very audacious and arrogant of us to assume that we can. And I'd rather have a manager who knows the reality, how the reality is, act accordingly, but still tries to make the team better. So while I understand what Muhammad is saying, I also feel that there are so many things Carnevali needs to resolve, very difficult items as well. And
Yeah.
I'm very happy that he's taking his time to do so, and doing it in a manner which we can all see is with a bit of long-term vision, but not too long, if you know what I mean. So uh, it's difficult for him. It's really difficult, but I have to say kudos for him, how he's behaving himself. And of course, the field will speak about how well he did. But from what I can tell, feel, and sense, I think we're on the right path, and we're better off than we were last year. And we still have 3 weeks to go, so let's make them count.
Let's talk Dougie. Um, with McKennie and Taram largely out for this preseason, we've seen a lot of Douglas Luiz, a player who we all hoped would be bought um, by Villa uh, in this off season. He's shown, I think, a decent play. I think his technicality is not in question. It's always comes down to his physicality and his effort. Um, Skippy wants to know, is he 100% staying?
Well, not even Yildiz is 100% staying, so that's an impossible question for me to answer. What I can answer, that he charmed the pants off Spalletti with the way his technical ability is, and what he can do within the midfield. That was so desperate for a quality injection. He has that quality, but as you said, the doubts remain concerning his physicality. But Spalletti is very confident that he'll regain said physicality, and he also asked Burgess to oversee his transition, and have some individual training schedules for him to get that physicality up, because what he does technically for Spalletti is perfection. And you could tell, if you compare the Douglas Luiz I personally saw at Standard, and you compare the Douglas Luiz we saw against Chelsea, was already night and day difference in a 2 week time frame, by just training, hanging out with the guys, getting a sense of validation within the team. which makes a huge difference. And especially after Spalletti was so positive about them, mentally that gave him a big boost. And that's why he also said, I want to stay. I want to thank Juventus by getting good performances in and helping them win points and titles and whatnot. So Spalletti likes him. He likes Spalletti. And we'll see what the preseason does. The preseason is going to be very indicative of that. But I think I think we'll keep him, bar any out of context offers.
Yeah, we talked about a few midfielders that I think are higher candidates, or at least ones I would prefer to leave before him. Well, you mentioned not even Yildiz. Vesterman asked, Yildiz to Arsenal, question mark. This is something that we've seen online, talked about at times. Our Turn Giants chat. Somebody mentioned this. Have you heard anything about Yildiz leaving at all, in addition to specifically Arsenal?
No. Very short
Done.
answer. So, nope.
Done. All right. Well, enough said. Let's move on to Brian. Brian asks, I think somebody else did as well, asked about, and I might be mispronouncing this name. Apologies. Dion Methily, the
Yep.
20-year-old left back for Toulouse. Um, I think left back is a position where notable weakness. We kind of see Celik right back by trade fitting in that position when Cambiaso's not there. Cambiaso, we all know, limited in his production ever since Man City knocked on the door. Have you heard anything about Dion Methily coming, or any rumors about that player?
Coming, he was on the list. He's been on the list since 2 years because he's one of the best up and coming left backs in Europe in terms of not defensively, but he's kind of the if I need to compare him to a player, I'd say the Portuguese what was his name? Even though he was a right winger, played for City as well. Help me out.
A winger, a fullback, or like a winger?
Yeah, fullback winger. He kind of was a hybrid.
Shoot, I don't know.
Come
I
on.
mean, Portuguese like fullback, obviously, Cancelo played over there.
Cancelo, yeah, yeah,
Oh, you're there. Okay.
Cancelo.
All right. I was like,
Yeah, sorry.
okay. Yeah.
It was Cancelo, yeah. Yeah, it was Cancelo. He's kind of, that type of player. So but he's expensive. He's expensive. It's a 30 million, I think, market price that they're asking for him.
Hmm.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that it depends on what Cambiaso does.
Gotcha.
What happens with Cambiaso.
Apologies. Osama also asked about the player. I want to shout him out as well. Both Brian and Osama wanted to know about this rumor. Thank you, Frederic. I'm trying to scroll back to where Sasha asked about Milik. Milik has gotten a lot of playing time, like Douglas Luiz, two guys who are very much out for different reasons last season. Milik seemingly has found a short spell of fitness. What are you hearing about him?
It's the same as with Arthur and Rugani. We stand to make no profit from him.
Okay.
Doesn't weigh on the books that much, even though Milik's on a pretty serious wage. But I think that Juventus are best at. While Camoli was hell bent on getting these types of players out, it kind of worked against him. We saw that with Rogani, who came back, Nico
Hmm.
Gonzalez, whatever. So I think Carnevali's taking the stance. Well, they've been here for such a long time. They cost us so much money. So last year, it's not gonna make anyone's life more miserable. So if Spalletti should decide that Milik is somebody I want on the bench, in order to bring him in last couple of minutes when we're struggling to get that occasional header in, or who knows, why not? So, and it all depends on the player as well. And Milik made it very clear that he wants to stay at Juventus because he feels well. It's also a mental health thing because he had some depressions, and I think that he's looking for stability now. And if he stays fit, then Juventus won't be the team to say, "Oh, no, you need to fuck off." I don't think that will happen, but it's kind of a non-issue to Juventus in that sense.
I Alex agrees. I agree. I think keeping him as a third striker to have those options and get some of those minutes, I think, is a good option to have because on his day he is actually a pretty competent, complete striker. It's just let's be real, we can't rely on him to be an everyday
No,
starter or maybe a start at all, just a guy off the bench.
but one thing I can say is we'll see a lot more rotation this season
Well,
from Juventus than we had because we had no viable alternatives last season. Spalletti made it
yeah,
very I want
yeah.
to rotate. So as a rotational player, even for Coppa Italia game, why not? If he
That's what
doesn't
people are
cross
saying
an
in
arm and a
chat.
leg,
Alex says he's going to be the Europa League top scorer. Sasha says he's going to help in the Copa. Agreed. And because of the financial situation, his wages aren't that bad and all this so forth. I think like Rugani and stuff, it doesn't matter. It doesn't
no,
matter.
no,
And like Rugani and Milik can do a job for us if they stay healthy. Artur, as much as we might not care, not. So we'll see him probably
no.
somewhere. Let's talk
I
about
also saw.
let's
So,
talk about Docker Face's question if we can. Frederic, he says, why do you think the new management is more successful leveraging Juventus's legacy and bringing high profile transfers? I love to see guys who actually want to play for us. And that's something we've talked a lot about in the past, right? Frederic is
yeah,
bringing in players who are passionate about the team. I mean, it's indisputable that Colomwani is like, I want Juventus and only Juventus, right? And we saw when you went to Tottenham on a worse deal, by the way, with Tottenham than PSG would have gotten with us. And he couldn't tap into that team being played out of position and so forth. See, Ali Begovic wanted by a lot of teams, really excited to come here. Thanks, Pjanic, and so on and so forth. So, is this a Carnivale thing? Is
yeah,
that,
yeah.
or an entire management strategy?
Carnevale and Masaya are pretty much the same in sense of they want to feel that a player is ready to play for Juventus. Would it be at Sassuolo? It would be the same. But they want to have that sense of belonging. They want to feel that the player is pushing for a move and that the player understands maybe that we're not, the club that we once were, but we're trying to get back there. And that's vital because that's why, we didn't take this into account a couple of years in a row. That's why we made these mistakes financially, sportingly, and that's something Cannavali wants to. It's the same with Lukumi. I think we can get better defenders than Lukumi for that price, but I think because of the fact that he's refusing all other transfers, he gets a step. Before the rest, because Cannavali sees, okay, this is a player that really wants to join Juventus and for him that's essential because that's how you create a group of players that are fighting for the same cause. If they all want to be there, they all want to fight for the jersey, the DNA, the whatever, the history. But that's one of the first steps to solidify that basis, and that's what Carnevali is doing perfectly, in my opinion.
I agree. I think the important thing to remember, and you say, is that they're ready to play for Juventus, not just love Juventus. Because Coop wanted Juventus, right? But it was
Yeah,
very
yeah.
clear he wasn't a fit, or whatever happened to him, it just didn't fit. So they're, I think what we've seen from Carnivale so far, again, very new and young. We haven't seen them play meaningful games yet on the pitch. But we're seeing so far seems to be a better marriage of bringing in quality and the quality that wants to play specifically for Juventus, who's passionate about what we bring to the table.
But also very differently from how Carnevali and Masai are handling things. They go to the player, they talk to the families, to the agents. Carnevali steps on a plane and goes to Cologne to talk with Ale Begovic and Pjanic as an intermediary or whatever. But he does the work. He talks with the family. He looks up everything. He knows a lot. He's not just selling, oh, come to Juventus, we'll pay you this much. That was our go to like a couple of years ago. Oh, you want to play for Juventus, but you want 8 million net? No, no worries. No, Carnevali takes time, effort, along with Masara to see who is this kid, where does he come from, what does he want to do, what does he want to achieve, what is his motivation, and
Mhm.
then they numbers and contracts and whatever. And this is such a style break with how Kamoli handled it that it's not even funny anymore. Carnevali's literally, handling everything. He was in Milan yesterday at one of the hotels, talking to other managers and scouts and whatever. Went off to Continassa, stayed there till 1 o'clock at night and so forth. So it's a big difference. Big
All right.
difference.
In the interest of time, we're going to do three rapid fire questions that are already in chat. Then I got to go. Like I said, I just actually arrived home from my 11-hour flight, like at this point, 2 hours ago. So I have to like unpack and stuff and get ready. My parents are bringing my kids back home. So got to take care of that. That's pretty important. So the rapid fire questions are first from Asam or Assam. How is Farhad doing? We miss him. Like I said, if you weren't here earlier, myself, Kevin, and not Frederic, Farhad have all been on vacation. So he's doing well. He took his kids on vacation. He didn't say where, but they were lovely pictures of beaches and palm trees.
LA, I thought.
Oh, he was in LA? Well, I mean, he loves LA and he lived there for a long time. So he's going to be coming back and he will be a part of the plugged drinking episode, preseason episode, predictions episode, giveaway episode that I talked about earlier. Next rapid fire question comes from Dan Colosimo. Do we think that we'll see Coop as a center back again? I think it's hard to predict, but I think if he's forced to stay with our team, Luciano will use him in whatever capacity he feels he can help the team, which mostly would involve him coming off the bench. Do you disagree with that, Frederic?
No, and it's difficult to say at this point because if you have better center backs, why use him? I'm pretty confident that Cope will be a last minute departure this season, especially if Luis keeps progressing the way he does, because then you're just overcrowded in midfield,
Yeah.
my
Last
opinion.
last question from Ace, who was a lovely contributor today, especially with giving us jewels that we still don't know what they do. So apologies. But the concern, his concern is that Spalletti doesn't play the kids. And will guys like Kareem and Jeff Ekator get playing time? And I think these are very two different situations with these two players. Um, Yildiz is in the similar age profile, right? And obviously got a ton of playing time. I think Spalletti is interested to play the best players on a team that is starving for quality. You bring in a guy like Ali Begovic for what we paid for him to play. Full stop. End of
Yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah.
End of story. So whether
Ale
he plays at a
Begovic,
10, whether they play around in sort of a two behind the striker situation or whatever, or Yildiz in the middle, Ali Begovic, whatever, he's brought in to
and
play.
and Spalletti agrees because you don't bring in that player prior to consulting with your coach because from what I hear is that Ali Begovic made a real impression during this World Cup on Spalletti. So if that is on the same line, and you have Massaro who's been following him for more than a year, you have Carnevali who tried to bring him into Sassuolo actually 2 seasons ago, and you have Spalletti saying, "Hey, this kid is good," then you don't pay that much to sit him on the bench. I think
Mhm.
what you said was nail on the head. Quality. If you're 18 or 28 or 38, if you have quality, you can help the team. You're playing, and especially if you show that in training, and that's what. Kerim is doing right now because from what I could
Yeah.
tell in the training sessions, he's really hungry and he's trying to, fight for first place in the team. And I also think he'll probably start tomorrow against Inter.
We'll
I
see.
think
We'll
he'll get a
see.
starting position.
And then, but the opposite's true of Ekator. Ekator was a player who played less than 1,000 minutes in Serie A last year, scoring only 3 goals, mostly playing as a cameo off the bench position. Very raw. I actually like his skill set. Very complete. He likes to be on the ball. He's confident on the dribble. He makes aggressive runs into the channel, but he's too raw in my opinion. I would not be surprised if Ekator gets loaned out or
No,
struggles to get meaningful minutes this year for us. And that's simply because of the gulf in quality between these two players. Not to say that Jeff Ekator's bad, but he's definitely more indicative of a 19-year-old than Ali Begovic, who is, like Yildiz, showing a confidence and a technicality that you would expect to see in someone much older.
Also, we're not Chelsea. We can't afford to have a roster of 55 players. It's as simple as that. So some of them will have to get up and leave
Yeah.
permanently or for the moment.
There have been a lot of other good questions like Nico Gonzalez and all this other stuff. Unfortunately, because of my own time constraints, this is my fault. We have to let you go. If you
We'll
have
get back to that.
questions, you can reach out to me on Instagram, Zach Talks Calcio. You can reach out to Frederic on Instagram, the Scoop Juve. You can reach out to the general account that all of us are participating in, Turin Giants. You can comment on this video. We read the comments. We don't always reply to every single one, but we read them all. So if you have a direct question, ask it in the comments as well, or
Yep.
as an alternative, and we can post our answers there. Please do not let
And now that you're
this video.
back,
Yeah, we'll be.
we'll
I'll
have
be,
it.
we'll
We'll
be
have a
doing
new
more of these.
episode
Yeah,
soon.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely. So, it's really good to be back. A wonderful time in Europe. Um, Glad to be back on the grind. It's good to see everybody in chat again. It's been a long time since I saw all of you. I really appreciate you, and I've seen some new names here. So thank you to them and to the folks who contributed for the first time,
Yeah.
literally ever
Thank
in
you so
Turin
much.
Giants official channel history. That means a lot. Like honestly, we were a little bit.
Yeah.
If you were here, we were a little bit at loss for words just about how special that was for us.
Yeah. Indeed.
Frederic, do you want to say anything? I know I was cut you off when you try to say
No,
goodbye to
no, no.
folks.
I just want to say thank you so much, especially not just to the people who donated because it helps for us to keep the lights on and pay for shit. And we appreciate that a lot, but also the people that have been here since day one, following us, engaging in chat and whatever, means the world to us, I think. And I can speak for the both of us when I say that, we really like that. And yeah, thank you so much for the support and love.
All right, everybody. Again, Frederic, thank you for manning the phones. Everyone in chat, thank you so much for your contributions and your participation. And until next time, as always, Forza Juve.